The Belt and Road Initiative is a massive trade and infrastructure investment project taking place both outside and within China's borders. Domestic projects in Xinjiang and foreign efforts in Pakistan indicate that China's model of performative local governance is extending to other regions. Isa Ding's writings on performative governance and Chinese environmental protection scenarios provide a framework that argue can also be used to assess recent Chinese state behavior in Xinjiang and Pakistan in the context of the BRI. Isa Ding has written extensively about performative governance in China. Her research studying the Environmental Protection Bureau in Lakeville, Jiangsu Province, has led to significant insight into the qualities of a government that may determine the relationship that it has with the public. In her book, The Performative State, she provides a theoretical framework based on the capacity of government and scrutiny against the government. In her writings, Ding describes two factors that she decided have an overwhelming influence on the government's behavior. Those being scrutiny, which she defines as the extent to which a state or a single bureaucracy is placed under the critical examination for its performance, and capacity, which she defines as the state's logistical ability and political authority to perform its various functions. Scrutiny can manifest as two different forms. Internal scrutiny refers to scrutiny against the state with the state itself as the critical agent. External scrutiny refers to the scrutiny against the state with the general public as the critical agent. For the purposes of this project, I focus on external scrutiny, which can look different depending on the context of the rules and society in which it takes place. For example, toxic pollution caused by Formosa Plastics Group near Vietnam's Ha Tinh province and the local government's inaction in the indicting of the company amassed protests originating in Facebook groups left uncensored by the government. The performative nature of the government officials swimming in the local water caused further outrage rather than understanding by the public. In China's Zhejiang province, river pollution in 2013 incited local people to push the local Environmental Protection Bureau to respond. Members of the EPB went swimming in the river to prove its cleanliness, but it was a tributary upstream from the polluting factories, and so it was relatively clean. Local people applauded the action even though no substantive measures against the pollutants were taken. Ding argues tight internet censorship and lack of a medium to consume unwelcome information are to blame for the lack of scrutiny. In both of these cases, the government's capacity to employ internet censorship technology to suppress knowledge that may lead to scrutiny is different. However, they are both similar insofar as their relation to the environmental protection. Capacity in environmental protection oftentimes requires a sacrifice in the industrial sector, and so it's easy to see why the government capacity to substantially fix the problem may be stifled. Using these metrics of capacity and scrutiny, Ding proposes a model of four different kinds of state behaviors. When capacity is strong, a state can be paternalistic if scrutiny against it is weak. A paternalistic state enjoys relative autonomy to use its strong capacity flexibly. Strong capacity combined with strong scrutiny leads to a substantive state, which Ding defines when the state is capable of performing its key functions and public scrutiny will make its life miserable if it fails. When capacity is weak, a state can be inert when scrutiny against it is also weak. Ding defines an inert state as one that lacks any logistical abilities or political authority and lacks pressure from the public to do anything. Weak capacity with strong scrutiny leads to the titular performative state of Ding's book, in which the state may feel pressure to exhibit responsive traits only to appease the population. It is important to note that a state cannot be treated as a monolithic entity within this framework. Different branches of governance and bureaucracies within the states can present with different state behavior. Ding studies the Environmental Protection Bureau, but the state behavior within the context of the BRI is not guaranteed to be the same, and the state behavior can also be different. In Xinjiang, the BRI is centered around urban modernization of various cities and their transformation as transfer hubs, as well as trade, logistics, financial, and cultural centers. This domestic project stands in direct alignment with Xi's China Dream, a revival of state doctrine prioritizing China's mythologized history and placing strong emphasis on regaining control and power within its borders. Not everyone has benefited from the BRI renovations in Xinjiang. Poor Uyghurs and poor Han living in cities like Urumqi and Kashgar experience displacement as the city centers are rebuilt as tourist hotspots. Construction and steel government-owned enterprises based in eastern cities exclusively lead renovation efforts to the detriment of local companies. Uyghur lifestyles are also disrupted by religious restrictions and the commodifying sanitation of their culture to appeal to mass tourism. Large police presence that resulted from extremist Uyghur terrorist attacks in the early 2000s, combined with strict internet censorship, have left most Uyghurs completely unable to protest against renovation detriments to a significant degree. Instead, local people rely on the idea of coping against a force that they have no control over. People withstand their once private and cultural spaces. In Pakistan, the BRI has manifested as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a transport infrastructure project stretching from Xinjiang to Pakistan's Indian Ocean coast. Although Xi's China Dream also prioritizes the expansion of trade with neighboring nations in the BRI as well as the return of China as an important global power, this becomes harder to manage when dealing with projects outside of China's borders. Pakistani people are not always employed in infrastructure development projects, and certain regions, such as the Balochistan region, receive little benefit from projects like the Gwadar port. Huge environmental impacts from the infrastructure project have also been a source of protest for many residents who live in the vicinity of coal-powered facilities built for the project. In Pakistan, BRI protests projects face far stronger external scrutiny than in China. Local journalism has exposed issues like land disputes and labor exclusion in Gwadar, while communities in Balochistan have protested environmental damage and unequal benefits. Militant groups such as the Balak Liberation Army have also carried out attacks on Chinese engineers and CPEC sites. In the case of Xinjiang, the alignment of the renovation projects of the BRI with Xi's China Dream doctrine allows for a significant government capacity. Combined with a population that is virtually unable to scrutinize through real life or online political action, I argue that the Chinese state behavior leans on the paternalistic through the BRI in Xinjiang. In the case of Pakistan, capacity by the Chinese state is still significant because of the importance to Chinese industries that the BRI provides, but it is weakened by the fact that it is operated in another country. Combined with higher levels of scrutiny by the press and terrorist groups, I argue that Chinese state behavior is more performative in this case. This project shows that Isa Ding's framework of capacity and scrutiny is a powerful tool for understanding how the Chinese state behaves across different BRI contexts. In Xinjiang, high state capacity combined with very limited public scrutiny produces a paternalistic pattern where the state can act autonomously under the banner of the China Dream. In Pakistan, however, China's capacity is constrained by operating abroad, while scrutiny from local journalism and armed groups is far stronger, pushing the state toward more performative behavior. Comparing these cases demonstrates that Ding's model can meaningfully explain variation in how the BRI is implemented across regions. Thank you.